That was probably one of the biggest game changers for me with how I'm using it now, and like one of the main ones that I am using.
AI is this massive, powerful wave that's just revolutionizing the way every industry operates. You manage 15 short-term rentals with a lean team, and most operators your size, they're drowning in day-to-day, chasing cleaners, fixing pricing, putting up with guest fires. You built an AI system that runs a lot of it for you.
The people who thought that cars were stupid and they still wanted to ride their horse. People who aren't adopting this technology and these systems, the people who are going to be in the car are going to be a lot further along and ahead than the people that are still like saying the horse is the best way because it's the way they did it for 50 years. We're all on the same field. We all have access to these things. So if you didn't want to take the keys to the car and take it for a rip, then that's on you. What I was doing at one property is not the same as what we're doing at like now approaching 20. Maintenance, turnovers, rating and responding to reviews, the volume of guest communication, it forces you to implement some good systems, some good automations, because if you don't, all of your time, energy, resources, and stress, it's going to consume you.
So you started scaling up and you got to the point where time became a big constraint for you. You started realizing, hey, there's a lot more leverage that I can get from AI. What did that look like?
The main one is that was probably one of the most pivotal moments from transitioning mostly to using ChatGPT or some of the native AI. And just this morning, we did a short-term rental business license application. This was something that would have taken me like over an hour before.
If everything got wiped tomorrow, the portfolio, the systems, all of it, what do you rebuild first and why?
Oh, wasn't expecting that question. To be completely honest, with the things that I have built in my business now, would probably be.
Chad started with no money, no team, and a saw that he didn't fully know how to use. He bought his first property at 20, renovated it himself, and rented out a room while he slept upstairs. And this was just to see if the model worked. Well, of course, it worked. One bedroom out-earned his entire legal suite. So he scaled. And when operations started breaking, he didn't hire his way out, he built his way out. So what stood out to me, he's not selling a finished product. He's still in it, still refining, still figuring it out. And that's exactly what makes this worth listening to. Now, Chad's a short-term rental operator running 15 properties in Edmonton with an AI system doing most of the heavy lifting. Let's get into it. Welcome to the Wealth Through Real Estate Show. Today I'm joined by Chad Harker. Chad, I want to welcome you to the show, brother.
Yeah, appreciate you being here. I'm excited to get into it, and I know we got some good stuff to talk about.
Oh man, Chad, I'm super excited to dive into this one. This is going to be different. It's going to be unique. But before we get into your story, I want to start somewhere specific. You know, you manage 15 short-term rentals with a lean team, and most operators your size they're drowning in day-to-day, chasing cleaners, fixing pricing, putting up with guest fires. You built an AI system that runs a lot of it for you. Now, before we get into how you built it, I want to start here. I want to ask you, what's the one task that used to eat hours of your week that now takes you, I don't know, let's say basically zero time or a lot less time? And what did that unlock for you?
Oh, waste no time getting into it with the great questions. Yeah, that's a really good one. Could think of a few different answers, but probably the main thing in terms of like the business operations would probably be a lot of the guest communication, because it's just one that is always coming, going, and a lot of the operational items too. Like we need to make sure that every guest like check-in goes smoothly, so like they're getting their pre-arrival requirements, their security deposit, damage waiver paid for, verifying that, making sure the smart locks are like up to date, charged, have the right reservation code, checking the ring, like our monitoring cameras, so then we know who's coming in and out. And another big one that's probably just like more applicable for anyone is I created a really good email automation skill. So like I've always heard of that like inbox zero, and I
Yes.
finally have got there, and it is like just something that is so much extra stress or relief off of my plate that I don't have to worry about. And I know that it's not just like everything is just deleted. It's like everything is properly stored and documented with like invoices from our contractors, like different accounting elements from our business, reservation details, like all of these things. It's like it's set up really well, and it's something that I'm pretty proud of, and probably is like, yeah, saves me like multiple hours a week, and the compounding effect is pretty huge. And just like with the relief of the stress and energy too. So I'm like, I don't have to worry about this nonsense.
Oh, 100%, man. And I think I speak for the vast majority of people here when I say most entrepreneurs, most investors and operators don't love the administrative side. So if you can sort of lighten that load and spend more of your time on the creative side, the building side, the higher leverage activities, it just gives you a lot more capacity, a lot more time back. Now, I'm curious, when you first started seeing that leverage, because if people haven't guessed by now, we really I want to dig deep to see, what leverage Chad is getting with short-term rentals. We've discussed short-term rentals before, but we all know that AI is this massive, powerful wave that's just revolutionizing the way every industry operates. So I really want to dive in here. But when you first started seeing that leverage, the moment that you realized this machine that you building, that you're putting time into, is actually working. What did that feel like? Because I'm sure that felt pretty cool. I think when people get that little taste of, wow, okay, there's actually a real life use case inside of my business, outside of asking ChatGPT to help you draft up something or come up with a recipe or something basic, like getting an actual real life use case in your business. What did that feel like?
Yeah. So I think, yeah, you really hit the nail on the head there with talking about like the chat GPT, which is, I think, was a great thing for brainstorming, strategizing, drafting replies. And some of the stuff that you could still do with it is tremendously helpful. But probably the point where I really realized how powerful it was and the direction that it was going was when it gave me the ability to start like actually executing on things. It wasn't just like asking a question and an answer. It was like, okay, this is now able to do what I did or what I had to do or what someone on our team had to do. And it could just execute on it like in the same level or a higher level. So that was probably the moment where I was like, okay, this is pretty cool. Like like just this morning we did a short-term rental business license application, which is like a multiple page document, requires an operational plan. And because I've done it so many times, we already had an SOP and documentation for this. I just used AI to reference the SOP that we have that's already connected and integrated with our systems, with the AI systems that we use. And it's able to just like bang it out, execute it, automatically send off that email, and it's done. Like this was something that would have taken me like over an hour before.
I love it. And that's really the thing, is I think a lot of people, and most of us started out that way, and there's some people that are still just doing that, is using ChatGPT or other AI, other LLMs for brainstorming, using it as effectively just a Google search. But the real magic comes into play when you tap into the agentic side. When you tap into, hey, I can actually sort of have like an employee that never gets sick or takes time off, and can actually do tasks for me, as opposed to me just chatting with AI to refine my thoughts or refine my messaging. Um, that's magical. Okay, now before we dive any further, I need to take you back, just for people watching who don't know who you are. Could you share how you got started in real estate and your journey to date?
Yeah, yeah, for sure. So I am maybe a little bit younger, but I did actually have almost 6 years of experience from when I first started investing. Uh, like bought my first place when I was I think I just turned 20, and at that time was not into the short-term rentals. I was just starting to get involved with like the real estate world and what I could do. But yeah, my family was never like super like well off. Always did the best we could with what we had, but it was something that like investing always fascinated me. I seen a lot of the most successful people I knew or read about were into real estate, and I was like, well, this is the way to go. So I wanted to get started, bought my first place, and looking at all the resources and reading I did, I wanted to do like a Burr style strategy. So yeah, I just rolled up the sleeves and did a lot of it myself because I could not afford to pay anyone to do anything at that time. And yeah, I just learned a lot, made a lot of mistakes. Uh, you know, maybe cut my finger once or twice with the saw, and still have all my fingers though. and finished the renovations, did a legal suite on that first property, and then just kind of like went into the house hacking, and that's how I got into the short term rentals. So after the legal suite was done, had that rented out long term, and it actually still have the same tenant from when I first completed it, and it's the only long term tenant in my portfolio now. He's just been so good, which it's like, and I'm not saying short-term rentals are the end all be all. Like it all depends on the person. And like even for me, this guy has been great. So I could see how if it is going good, like keep someone in there. And I was living upstairs, so I had some spare bedrooms, and I heard so much about the Airbnb thing, and I was like, I want to get more into it or learn more about it and see if this would be a good strategy to do on other investment properties. So I gave it a shot with Airbnb out a room, and lived upstairs while I was doing it. So was able to monitor things pretty closely, and you know, yeah, like I just heard so many things about it. Like you hear about the parties, the
Yeah,
riffraff, the damage, and
yeah.
I was like, well, let's see it firsthand. There's only one way to find out. So either it goes well, or someone murders me in my sleep because I'm still living upstairs, or or yeah, it would just be the best way to find out for actual hands-on experience with it. So that's how I got into it. And then like the first short-term rental listing was a bedroom.
Okay, okay. So yeah, so you started out sort of boots on the ground, putting in time, putting in effort, renovating. You, if I'm not mistaken, you sort of you say you bought that first property yourself?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, that's
Yeah.
right.
Okay. And then you sort of decided, okay, well, I got some extra space instead of just living comfortably and lavish and just filling up the rooms. I'm actually gonna have strangers live in the house here with me and test out this business model. I love it. And test it on such a small scale too, right? Like, um, that's fantastic because like the risk, I mean, aside from, you mentioning, hopefully not renting it to like a Jeffrey Dahmer type. But aside from aside from that risk, the risks are minimal because you already have the overhead expense. You live in there, it's your primary residence. It's like, let's test out this business model on a small scale, see what it's like, and then how did things progress from there? I'm guessing it must have worked out well where you thought, you know what, I actually like this business model. I want to take it and scale it.
Yeah, yeah. So after clearly no one murdered me in my sleep, so I I was able to collect some good some good extra money, and I was pretty blown away because with that one bedroom I was on average making more because of short-term rentals fluctuate so much based on the seasonality, but I was able to collect more revenue than I was for that entire two-bedroom, two-bathroom basement suite. And I was like, this is crazy. This is just one room. I put so much work into renovating this basement, dealt with all the processes with the city, the permits, the licensing, took a tremendous amount of time. And the time that it took to actually create the listing, get it up and running, and make more than what I did with that entire suite, I was sold on it. I was like, I'm gonna well, like going to your back to your question, it allowed me to cash flow tremendously well on a property that I was living with, and then eventually allowed me to lead into the next investments or the next deals.
Okay, okay. And I know before we actually started recording here, you were telling me about like the two new latest editions, And okay, so you've come a long way since then. And with every sort of growth step that you take, it inherently invites a little bit of chaos with it, right? Growing pains. So I'm curious, throughout your entire journey to date, what did the business look like at its messiest before any of the structure existed, before you started tapping into some AI and dialing in your systems? What did it look like at its messiest stage?
Yeah, no, that's a really good question. So, well, first of all, I think we still have a ton of room for improvement, and it's like an ongoing process of like refining, getting better, applying some of these, like the automations or whatever the next constraint is, because it's always going to be a pendulum, right? As you're growing, you might be getting some more operational expenses, or you'll see what will break at that next level, because what you're doing at, what I was doing at one property is not the same as what we're doing at like now approaching 20. So probably the messiest was kind of, I would say, around that like 10 property threshold, when we were getting up in that range, just being able to balance that quality of service and consistency that like you're able to really, it's not that hard to do with just like one or two or even five. But getting up to that like higher property number, everything is doubling, like the maintenance, the turnovers, the rating and responding to reviews, the volume of guest communication. So you really need, like, it forces you to implement some good systems, some good automations, and making sure that's locked in, because if you don't, like you will have no time. Like all of your time, energy, resources, and stress are going to be like, it's going to consume you.
100%. So, okay, so you started scaling up and you got to the point where time became a big constraint for you. And so you started looking for a solution, right? Now, what did you find? Did you get to the point where you couldn't find any that were good enough? I know a lot of people might just look to completely outsource as opposed to trying to build systems internally or figure things out. Uh, what did that look like for you when it came to actually trying to find the solution and that that sort of back and forth battle? Because someone like yourself and a lot of people out there know that when you're trying to figure out a solution to something, it's not always as simple as you think. You go through a lot of trial and error and testing this out, and okay, that didn't work. And then maybe if you're going to do it yourself, there's a lot of self-education that goes into learning that skill to build out that system, or just deciding, hey, that's not worth my time. I'm just going to outsource that. I'm just going to hire someone. I'm just going to delegate that. I'm just going to get a company to do it for me, or whatever, or get some form of SaaS or something that can help give me leverage. What did that process look like for you?
Yeah, I think with being able to like have the skills and ability to manage all of the places that I had at the time myself, I had a really good understanding of like what needed to be done to do it at a higher level. So being able to, well, number one, outsource. We do have some fantastic team members that are based in the Philippines. So
Yeah.
able to create some great leverage there, but it still is all for nothing. And this holds true, I think, for AI or even like team delegation. If you don't really know what you want, you have a clear scope of work, and you know what those processes in your business are, you're not going to really be able to build a good workflow or automation if you don't know what you're doing to begin with. So I had the good baseline of the knowledge and what I needed. So when I was creating these SOPs or processes with our team members, and now transitioning a lot of those to just the AI automations or workflows, then it just makes your life a lot easier. With like, you just need to have a good understanding to identify um like what actually needs to be done to build it out properly. So I think going back to what you said about, understanding like how you're going to create that leverage, and certain things might just be good to delegate. Like, I'm not going to pretend to know what I'm doing if I'm rating my own joint venture agreement. I'm getting a lawyer for that. So I think knowing like when to use, uh like, just fully delegate, and or to be able to build the knowledge and skills necessary to do like an important aspect of your business. Like even like you were saying for the podcast, you started out just editing everything yourself. But when you hired an editor, I'm sure that you were really well equipped to be like, yeah, this is like exactly what we need to do. And
Yeah.
that was like a perfect way to execute on it because you already knew exactly what needed to be done. So the hiring someone and then also like checking their work and like knowing the process was probably not that hard for you. It was just buying
Yeah.
back your time.
No, 100%, 100%. I think that self-awareness is good, and, yeah, I started out by myself, and, now I have a team behind me that does amazing work. I wouldn't be able to do half the stuff, I get done now by myself or that the team gets done. And yeah, with each person that I bring on, it's a case of, like with my editor, this is how I did it, years sort of my SOP. Get comfortable with that, and then I'm ideally looking, if I can help it, to hire people who are better or at least on the path of getting better at me than doing the thing, so that they can come with new ideas, new processes, new ways of doing things, and bring that to the table, so that everyone's bringing their creativity, and we collaboratively um, can get a better output and get a better product, and upgrade our systems and our ways of doing things. So yeah, no, for sure, like the stuff my video editor does, there's no way I could do that. And so yeah, I'm pretty curious though, because I think for a lot of people who've seen some success, they've gotten to the point already where they've realized, you've mentioned this a few times now, delegate, right? Like, you need delegation, and you need to know what's within your wheelhouse and what's not, what's worth your time and what's not, where your skills shine, what's the best use and leverage for those skills, and then delegate everything else out. But then there comes another segment to that with AI, where it's like, there's delegate, and then there's also like sort of automate, and there's delegating to humans and delegating to AI. Let's go to what that journeys look like from starting on ChatGPT, I guess, having people that you've delegated the work to realize, hey, there's a lot more leverage that I can get from AI. What did that look like?
Yeah. Yeah. So there is a lot of different ways that I guess I could start. But the main one is you touched on it a little bit is Claude. And that was probably one of the most pivotal moments from transitioning mostly to using Chat GBT or some of the native AI and some of the existing SaaS products that we use already.
Yeah.
Because with the ability for it to pretty much connect and integrate with anything, which with API keys or MCP servers, which is
Hmm.
if anyone who's listening doesn't know, it's just a technical way of saying like a plug-in. So like think of how you would connect your computer to like a live internet cable. So this is pretty much like a way for different software tools to directly communicate and extract data from each other. So now with the system with Claude, we could have our property management software connected. We could have our Gmail connected. We could have our Slack channels with our team communications. We could have our Monday.com board integrated to manage tasks and also cross reference the Slack channels, what got done, any daily reports. So all of these things, it's like a central hub rather than, you have to go into all these different tools. It's like I don't really need to log into anything else. I could get access to everything on one place with one tool. So
Yeah.
that was probably one of the biggest game changers for me with like how I'm using it now and like one of the main ones that I am using. And with some of the like limitations, there are going to be limitations with everything. I know Claude Code is one of the main ones that we use like religiously now. And like you said, with Claude Cowork is really good. It's a little bit more user friendly if you're used to Chat GBT. Like it has a nice clean interface, so it still looks like a regular like Chat GBT window. It's not as technical if you're like not used to seeing the back end of a computer in a terminal. So you
Yeah.
could still go in and like do a lot of the same things that you would be able to do, but just on a cleaner, more user friendly interface. And it's like I find it's really fantastic for any browser automations because you could set up scheduled tasks for it to do things for you. And if you have the integration with or the connection with the MCP server for Google Chrome, think of anything that you could do on a browser, it could essentially do for you. There are some limitations with like maybe certain browsers restricting it, like for financial stuff. Like I wouldn't maybe get it to be like doing everything in your bank. And a lot of the like browsers for that for banks or other items, they'll like restrict bots or things like that from going on. But yeah, that's one thing that we found is like really helpful and like some of the use cases between the two that we're using now.
Yeah, no, 100%. I can absolutely relate to that. Um, the first time I saw this in action, I was like, I was blown away. But I'm curious on your end, are there specific skills that you put in that you're like, damn, that was worth it?
Yeah, yeah. So I'm glad you touched on this because this is probably one of the most like powerful features that you could use in both Claude Code and Claude Cowork is the skills because like you said with the SOPs or like you have a specific workflow that you're already doing in your business, if you create it into a skill, then it just allows a little bit more autonomous, like execution of something that you already have to do in a really structured way. So like a few that we have is like we have a whole pipeline for launching a listing. So there's like the first steps from like actually getting the contract signed, sending a quote over to the homeowner for like the scope of work for the project, what needs to be done, and then having all of these checklists and SOPs like integrated in the rate phases. So we have like a 5 phase launching system, and with each phase is like its own custom curated skill. So then
Yes.
you could have these skills communicate with each other so they almost like hand off to each other in sequence. So even though it is like a more comprehensive, in-depth process, we have it set up and structured so it's like just it flows in sequence. And I think that one is like a really powerful one that we use on a reoccurring basis. I also have like talking about the emails, like a email scan skill, and these skills could
Mm,
have all of these
yeah.
connections that we talked about in place. So like for the launching system that we have a integration with our property management software. So then it could automatically upload all of the images that we need, rate the descriptions and the copy, and then it could reference the files that we have for our brand voice, our tone, some of our
Yes.
like our evergreen listing descriptions, house rules, all of these items, and then it could pull and extract all of like the property specific details or the items from the quote or that owner or client's email address, and then like having like structured files so then you could have all the contacts or leads like almost acting as like a CRM, but it has more information and it's able to manage the context a lot better because let's say even for the listing launch we could see that we have a client list or a contact list, and then you could have the details about the client, reference the ability to reference all of the past conversations, communications, where you're at currently at that stage in the project. So you like when you look at the contact list that you have for that file, you could be like, oh, this was the last communication. This is what we talked about previously. Even with meetings, like we have a integration for the transcripts. So then I could look at the
Yes.
previous transcripts and have like a more automated way to like send follow-ups or look at what we talked about last time if we're going to be having another meeting. So you could it's just incredible what you could do. And like you said, with the continuous learning or the feedback, every I think this is one thing that people miss the mark on a lot is having that loop in place. So
Yeah.
it is always going to be getting more intelligent and smarter. So every time that you run a skill, I have a it's a system where you could log any of the iterations or things where it went wrong and you might need to adjust. And then you could identify patterns on like what went wrong, what went well, and then make iterations on that skill based on every time you run it. Because every time you run it, it should be getting smarter and more intelligent rather than just having like a
Yes.
generic system prompt where it's like always going to be the same and you're always going to be course correcting and making like if it makes a mistake, you're gonna have to like adjust the whole prompt. But like after you finish the run of a skill, you could just make those iterations and changes, and then next time it will be better.
100%. Yes, absolutely. And in fact, I also get it to check itself again, because sometimes the output that you get the first time is not 90 or 95% of the way there. It could be 60%. But then, it goes through again. And then I love that you highlighted that, because that's such a big one, is instead of going through this every single time, which can be frustrating. I'm sure we've all had our fair share of frustrating conversations with,
Yeah.
ChatGPT or whatever, you know what I mean, or Claude or whatever. But, it actually comes down to not using it correctly as well, or a portion of it. I mean, yes, there's hallucinations and stuff that happens, but there's like understanding how to use it makes a world of a difference to the output that you get. So, I love that you mentioned that, because being able to update your skills every single time and just make it smarter. I mean, one little key thing that I have as well is when if it's drafting up something, whether it's correspondence, whatever it is, I think most people can recognize those, and it's called M dashes. AI puts that in all the time. You could literally have a skill that has a list of things that you don't want it to do. You have a list of words you don't want it to include. AI sort of speak and dash those M dashes and stuff like that. So if it is automating any text or correspondence, or even drafting things that you can then take, adjust it for your own sort of liking, and then send over. But there's a lot less adjustments to be done just by adding those things in. So, yeah, no, that's awesome. Now, Chad, I'm sure there are people right there that are thinking, well, damn, okay, all of this sounds good. I completely agree with you, that, in theory, like I'd love to implement this, but Chad's a young guy. Obviously, you tech enabled, you know how to do these things. I'm old. I have no clue. Like I can just get by, switch it on my computer, opening up the basic applications and getting things done. That's unattainable for me. What did this look like for you? Because you obviously had to learn about it somewhere, whether it's self-taught, whether it's YouTube videos, but you put the time in to learn. For someone who's like, yeah, okay, maybe I should give it a shot. What did that journey look like for you, getting to the point where, obviously you have a lot more to learn, I have a lot more to learn, but getting to the point where you can start really leveraging all of these things, understanding the how to, besides knowing, well, that's cool, I know what it can do, but I don't know how to get it to do that. What did that look like for you?
Yeah, so one of the big things I think is like gonna hold true, you know, now with all of the AI and automations, but even in the future is like putting yourself in a position where you're going to be around the right people. So I was fortunate enough to be around a lot of people that either have their own AI startups, their own software companies, and looking at what they're doing at like a massive scale or like at a much higher level than what I would ever need to do in my business, kind of like exposed me to like what was possible. So it opened my eyes to like just starting to get to implement some of these things with Claude Code or honestly, I might even still be the guy on ChatGPT using it like Google. So so
Yeah,
that
yeah,
was like what kind of got me started into it was like just being around the right people who are using and leveraging these tools and technology. And in terms of the learning, this is like another really good question because it does take time. There is a learning curve and it's not a overnight thing. Like if you were to hop into a Ferrari and you've never like even rode a bicycle before, it doesn't matter how good, fast,
yeah.
or powerful that car is. If you have no idea how to drive, like it's not going to take you anywhere.
Yeah,
So,
that's
so
it.
with this, it's great because it is such an intelligent system. And if there's anything that you don't know, you could ask it. You could upload screenshots. You could troubleshoot. You could get it to execute on things for you. Like, let's say you're trying to work through something, like a problem that you're experiencing with your one of the softwares that you use in your business, your CRM, whatever the case is. You could get Claude Cowork to go in and run a diagnostic on it, and it'll be able to report back to you. And if there's anything that you're not sure, I think it's really important to have a really good understanding of the different tools it uses and how it works, because then you won't be able to guide it, prompt it, or instruct it in the best way, because it'll just be like you're just letting it off to the races on its own. And I'm sure that you've experienced, like we've all experienced those fights with ChatGPT where it kind of like goes off course, or even with Claude Code, like it'll over engineer something with this complicated solution where you don't really even understand like why it's proposing what it is, or like what it's creating, because it can like just go like ripping on its own, creating
Yeah.
files, doing things, and then next time you go in, you have no idea like what's going on with it. So that's I think it's really important to have a good understanding. And if there is anything that you don't know with like what's going on under the hood, you just ask it questions or send it screenshots and be like, what is this? Or if it says something that you don't know, you're like, what does that mean? Like asking good open-ended questions, it will help you like really accelerate your knowledge, especially like as you're building or as you're executing on things. You're going to be able to be learning as you're actually doing the thing.
Oh yeah. 100%. Yeah, that's a real great point, is the tool itself can teach you how to use the tool. Um, and come to think of it, I do that a lot. Like if I have a use case where I think I could get leverage from AI, but I don't necessarily understand how, or maybe someone's out there listening and maybe it's for short-term rentals, or maybe it's just for their long-term rentals, or maybe it's for something else, maybe it's for their business, and you're not even exactly sure what the best use case is. And in that in itself already gives you a good starting point. Another thing that I've done as well is if I'm trying to learn a specific skill or implement a specific thing, is taking it a step further, maybe searching on YouTube and then just copying a bunch of the links on the videos that I think might be worth my time. But I don't want to spend 16 hours consuming all these different videos to sort of find what's the right video, or the right instructional steps for me to pursue. It's like I'll take those links and I'll put it inside of Claude, and I'll get it to get the transcripts, go through them, and based on my unique situation, rank them in order of like what to watch, what to skip, what to skim, and what order to do it in, and what's actually being covered, so that I know if it's really worth me looking at. And that already helps save me time if I'm going down a rabbit hole learning how to do something. Um, but no, those are all fantastic points. Now, we've spoken about all the sexy stuff. I wanna forget the highlight reel for a second. I wanna know, what's the one boring, unsexy thing that you do every week that's actually responsible for, you know, 80% of all of this work in. The thing that nobody talks about because it doesn't sell courses or gain views. Like, is there anything that you do where, yeah, it's not that attractive, but you can say that that definitely contributes to the growth of your business. Now, it could be within AI for sure, because I mean, the exciting thing that we're chatting about today is how you integrating this into your system to gain more leverage in your real estate business. But maybe it's not. Maybe you feel like it's something else. What's the one thing, unsexy thing, that you do that you could say that really moves the needle for me?
Yeah. Yeah. So a couple come to mind. One of them, I would say without a doubt, has to be the team meetings that we have, which is just non-negotiable. With all of the AI and automations, I think it's still really important to have a great team, people that you could rely on, touch on, and having that human interaction. Because even though that like you might be able to send someone a summary on Slack or email or whatever the case is, still having that connection with your team, having that alignment in what you guys are working towards, like how it benefits everyone, what it's doing for the business. And I definitely have AI incorporated in that element, but it's something that's like not, it's just not delegatable, and it has to be done at a high level. Like ever since I started, it was always a non-negotiable. And the other one, this one's probably a little bit more AI focused, that is not as sexy or attractive, is just doing a daily check-in with myself every single night before I go to bed. So I just go in, and this is another skill that's created that I've made. So, and going back to what you said about like the information that it has, the more information, the more connections, the more context, the better, the drastically better responses and output you're always going to be able to get. So I have
Yeah.
this check-in skill it's linked with my Google Calendar. It's linked with all of the emails, the Slack channel, all of these things. So then I get a good snapshot of like where we're at, and I pretty much just do a brain dump. Like I don't know if you ever use the voice to text, but I
Oh,
another
all the
like just
time.
a little good one, like because it just going back to the leverage and efficiency. You could always talk faster than you could text. So I just do that, do the voice to text thing and do like a voice dump with a few questions and a snapshot of like front and center my calendar, my most important goals like that I have set for each quarter and the year. So then I could see this, and when I'm making the decisions for the next day, I'm asking myself if this aligns with my goals that I'm going to set with myself. And then I'm honest with myself about like with what I did that day. Did I do what I needed to do? Because I have a growing to-do list, like probably many other entrepreneurs or real estate investors watching the show, and I know you're in that category too. Uh, just looking at everything on that list and understanding what those priorities are based on those goals, and then picking out the top three. And then from those top three, I'm like, I just pick one. I'm like, if I got one thing done today, this would have the highest impact, the highest leverage, and then just being accountable with that. So that's like one of the probably unsexy things that I do. And, some days like you're going to bed and it's like already super late. You've worked a ton, but it's something that I make it a mandatory, like non-negotiable, that every single day I'm like doing this check-in. And then when I wake up in the morning, I could see that snapshot of that summary of like what I need to do, exactly what the priorities are for that day. And then I just like begin ripping on that first thing in the morning.
Oh man, that is gold. Now, there's a better one to unpack there. So, firstly, I love the voice, the voice setting instead
Hmm.
of typing because you could speak way faster. In fact, I kind of tend to overdo it, even just on voice notes. Like I just prefer that method. I could be driving and I could be getting some correspondence done. So for everyone listening out there, I know we've spoken a lot about Claude because it's super powerful. But here's another one for people who are like me and prefer speaking as opposed to texting. It's called Whisper Flow. Now, with all that being said, we're discussing all the great use cases and benefits. I think there is a version of using technology as a crutch and a version of using it as actual infrastructure. Now, how do you know which one you build in? Because oftentimes I've caught myself with this sometimes is where you're doing the back and forth and this thing has taken you way longer than you expected because you're fighting with it or it's just not getting it right. And you might have reflected back and said, oh well, you know what, I probably could have just skipped all of this and done this myself or done something else. Um that's that's one example, maybe not the best one, but is there any use case that you can think of where it makes sense to not use it as a crutch, or that's using it more like a crutch than actual productive infrastructure that's going to give you that high ROI benefit?
Yeah, I think one of the best things that anyone could ask themselves if they're considering, doing that work or building something out is how many times or how often are you actually going to be doing this thing? Because it's not going to, maybe if it's just like a one off task or something that's like maybe a little bit more minor, but if it's something that's like a repeatable process in your business that you do on a daily basis or even a weekly or monthly basis, but it's going to have to be done every time, you could even have like a criteria that you put in place. Like I have a skill actually that it's called worth building. So it will double check available
I
like
love that.
any of the available like SaaS products on the
Yeah.
like available on the web. If it has like based on like what I currently have set up and configured, if like any of my existing systems could already achieve this, and like how often and what like the kind of the time ROI would be to build something like this out, and if it would be even worth considering doing. So I think like anything that, you know, typically if it's going to be something that you're doing more than once, you should have an SOP for it. You should have a process for it, and it would be something that's worth building out. If you could kind of do that calculation and be like, how much time is this going to save me? Like maybe it takes 2 hours to build, but it's going to save me 30 minutes every day. It's like, yeah, that's like a hard yes. Like definitely, it's going to save you 30 minutes every day over the course of the year. It's going to, safe to say, surpass that 2 hour threshold that it's going to take you to build it out. So that's kind of like what I do to see if it's like, oh, is this something that is worth actually doing, worth taking the extra time to build? Because you are right, you can get stuck down a rabbit hole because with everything it can do, it's like just because it can do it doesn't mean you should do it.
Yeah. Yeah. And then, and there can be times, like I still get this sometimes, where it can hallucinate on things, and if you don't pick that up, or if you're not seeing it, it can take you down a rabbit hole where you've spent more time trying to figure out how to actually implement this or build it or whatever the case may be. And it's taken you a round trip, and that can be frustrating. Or you feel like, hey, the more context and information, I've had that before, more context and information I throw at it, the better the output's going to be. But there comes a time where the output starts degrading, because you've given it too much. So no, I love that. The thing is, just like you mentioned, it does come down to the opportunity cost of all of it that you do for running your Airbnb business, right? For firstly, you want to keep those 5 stars up. So you want to ensure that there's a great guest experience. You want to ensure that you're on top of all the correspondence, that, it's just dialed in, that the correspondence is helpful. It's contextual to the, to the your clients or your guests or whatever the case may be. Um, I'm curious though. That's on the fulfillment side. On the acquisition side, where things start, when you're evaluating a new property, or running through specific numbers or conditions or anything along those lines, from the acquisition side, which I think a lot of these principles could be translated into long-term rentals as well, for people who have been listening till now, and they're like, well, they're listening for the AI factor, but they're not necessarily interested. The real estate investor is not necessarily interested in running a short-term rental business because it's a different ball game. Maybe that's not for them. Is there anything on the upfront acquisition side where you've started leveraging AI as well?
Yeah. So with the market analysis and looking at some of the data, the comp sense, uh, we do have a really good system for being able to evaluate the property, and also not just the property itself, because the bedroom bathroom count, configuration, the area of the city or your market is all they're all going to play factors. So being able to weigh these factors, what kind of impact they have, and also what kind of amenities and certain things in a property is going to contribute to that highest ROI. Like all of these come into play, and just like going back to the skills, we have some skills more curated for this. And I guess for like any listeners to this show that are like more so focused in Edmonton, if they add me on social media after and DM me the word guide, I could send like our playbook for how we analyze the markets, amenities, the property, like the ideal property segments, and I'll like drop everything with like our best areas of the city for the acquisition side.
Yeah.
And yeah, like just pretty much being able to understand like what some of those things are that are going to move the needle in terms of like the higher nightly rates, higher occupancy. What are like some of those economic drivers that are universal between long and short term rentals? Because if anyone does look at that guide, they might see a lot of the areas or uh, certain spots in the city they're like the best areas for long-term rentals too, and they're also the best areas for short-term rentals for a lot of the same reasons. Like one right now is that I could just tell you is one of the top is the area by the hospital, the university hospital, just off White Ave, like the Garneau, Ritchie, Hazeldean,
Oh yeah.
like those kinds of areas, because you're really close to White Ave, close proximity to downtown, and the drivers from the university and the hospital, like you're always going to have a super strong demand in that area and that market.
Yeah.
So like that's just a one good quick one if anyone's investing in Edmonton that like if you're going to get a short-term rental, couldn't recommend that area more. You're going to be paying a higher price point, but with the short-term rentals, it gives you the ability to produce a lot more cash flow. So with a house that you might have never otherwise been able to cash flow as a long-term rental, you could still be making some good money and experiencing all the benefits from that nicer area of the city with a better tenant or guest demographic and higher revenue and performance. So that's uh that's a good one that I'll leave with anyone listening.
Oh no, man, that's a great point. And then, to top that off, those are highly desirable areas. So in terms of holding the value and having a higher average rate of appreciation compared to less desirable areas in the city, it's definitely good locations to be holding properties. Um, so I know I love that, man. Thanks for throwing that out there. I'm curious though. What do you think, because you're in the space, what do you think the short-term rental space looks like in 5 years for operators who haven't changed how they run things?
Yeah, for I think both for short-term rentals or any industry, it's going to be an analogy is going to be like the people who thought that cars were stupid and they still wanted to ride their horse. They're like
Yeah.
people who aren't adopting this technology and these systems, they might still be able to get it done. They could still have a lot of great skills, but it's like the vehicle in which you're using to execute these skills or these things that you already know or are using in your business, the people who are going to be in the car are going to be a lot further along and ahead than the people that are still like saying the horse is the best way because it's the way they did it for 50 years. So that's I think that's going to hold true for any industry, any business. So anyone who's not using or adopting this now or like, really making it a priority to learn, there's not going to be any way that you're going to be able to keep up with anyone who is using these tools and systems. It's a reality, but we're all on the same field. We all have access to these things. So like if you didn't want to take the keys to the car and take it for a rip, then that's on you.
No, I 100% agree. And the way I see it is the way I saw just technology and systems in general, even before, AI, is any business is basically taking a group of people from point A to point B. And that's some level of fulfillment, right? They
Yeah.
coming to you, they paying for whatever the service or product or soft, whatever that is, they're paying to get from point A to point B. And the technology that you use is just the vehicle that gets you there. You can walk as a guide and walk them to point B. You could drive a bicycle, drive a car, or you could get them there with a plane. Either way, you're getting them from point A to point B, and it's still reliant on you and your expertise. For the most part, I don't know if that's going to go away now. It's industry dependent. But that being said, the vehicle that you use to get there is drastically going to dictate the volume of people you can get from point A to point B, how quickly you can get them from point A to point B. And obviously, people want to get from point A to point B as fast as possible. So they'll pay a premium for that, or they'll default to using people who can get them from point A to point B as fast as possible. So you eventually the business starts fizzling out, really, if you can't keep up with what the industry standard becomes for fulfilling for whatever your business does for its clients. So that's how I see it, is you just need to stay on top of it. I think a lot of people are scared that it's going to wipe them out, and there relatively might be industries that might end up coming to that, but for the vast majority, every single industry is going to be impacted by it, and figuring out how to gain that advantage and that leverage in what you do and use your expertise to help drive those systems internally for your business, I think is what's going to separate those that massively jump ahead in the years to come and those that fizzle out and die. Now, I have a question for you. This is a fun one. If everything got wiped tomorrow, the portfolio, the systems, all of it, what do you rebuild first and why?
Oh, wasn't expecting that question. You know, to be completely honest, just with the things that I've learned and have built in my business now, it would probably be something that would be more of a SaaS related product, or uh one tool that I'm actually looking at further building and refining is a more automated guest messaging interface and platform. So I might just pivot and would go like fully on the SaaS side. I think I would always want to be investing in real estate. And just investing in general is just, I think, one of the best ways that, if done correctly, is how you could generate the best long-term wealth for yourself. But I think that might be something that I would do, or even just helping other business owners that might have like those exceptional skills, but they might be lacking that technical knowledge with how they would be using those automations. Because I love real estate, I love short-term rentals, but I also just love business and problem solving. So I think seeing how I could help other people adopt some of these systems that have been like so helpful for me, like totally game changing, and seeing what it's done for me in my business, being able to help others, like kind of see that light at the end of the tunnel, would be something I think would be very fulfilling. And it is still something that I want to focus on, but there's, just like we talked about, there's so many different priorities and things that you got going on, but it is something that I think I would probably lean more into if I got like if everything got wiped and I had to start fresh tomorrow.
You know what? I can absolutely relate to that. I think it's personality dependent, but no, I 100% get that. My brain is very systems architectural like, and ultimately, it makes sense because you're looking at impact and level of impact that you could do in solving a high level problem. I've had the scalability of it. So no, I get it, man. That makes a ton of sense. Now, Chad, one last thing before we wrap up. Starting with this episode, we're doing something new on the show, okay? I'm calling them the wealth keys. Okay, now you're the first guest, so here's how it works. Every guest from here on out leaves behind a wealth key. One question that they want me to ask the next guest. Now, the question, that's the key. And the next guest is going to answer, and sort of, that will sort of unlock that answer for that key. But over time, I'm sort of looking at building a collection. Every key revealing something a wealth builder thought was worth passing on. You're the one who gets to leave the first one. So what's the question you want me to ask the next wealth builder? What's the key you want to leave behind?
Okay. Okay, I think I got a good one, because I've made some very expensive lessons in my business and life. So I would like to ask the next guest, what is the most expensive lesson that you've made, like that you've had from a mistake, and would you pay for that lesson again?
You know, I've asked that before, and it's a powerful question. It really is, because it defines the person you become, but there's a heavy cost.
Yeah.
So I'd be curious to hear that as well. And what was the mistake, I love that. That's the first wealth key in the collection, and it's going straight to the next guest. Now, Chad mentioned this already. you could reach out to him on Instagram, and he's got some great things that he could pass along. Just send him a DM. As you can tell, this guy has his systems in place, right? Send him a DM. He's going to shoot something your way. What I will do is I'll be sure to leave all his contact info, his socials, everything. Follow him along. He puts out some pretty good content, actually. Follow him along.
Uh-huh.
Check out his socials. I'll leave that in the show notes below. But Chad, I want to thank you for coming on, man. Before I let you go, for the people who are driving, probably not going to check the show notes. Where's the best place for people to find you?
Yeah, probably the best place would be Instagram or Facebook. Just Chad Harker Facebook, or Chad_Harker 780 on Instagram. And yeah, if you wanted like some of those resources, just DM me the word guide, or just follow along. I try to post as much value adding things as possible, like things that I've learned, things that I've messed up on, my expensive lessons. So I try to keep it as entertaining and value adding as possible. And it's always good to connect with other like minded people. So appreciate everything, Elray. This was awesome. Probably I've done a few podcasts, and this was probably one of the best ones yet.
Honestly, Chad, I appreciate you coming on and sharing, man. This is a ton of fun. So thanks for being here. Thanks for sharing. Thank you for tuning in to the Wealth Through Real Estate Show. Now, if you want to hear how someone goes from running an entire portfolio to picking up the pieces and rebuilding with real lessons in responsibility and resilience, then check out the episode that I shot with Ali Moreno. This is your host, Alre Noble, signing off.